When everything we consume is the worst thing ever by some mouth breather on the internet, how is anything truly the worst thing ever? Time for the only podcast to officially create a list of the worst movies ever made. The only one. For real. Worst movies ever.
Worst movies ever. I love coming into these episodes of Worst Movies Ever and being completely and utterly surprised by a film that has historically been labeled and denigrated as a shit film. I don't know about you guys, but when I first heard about Deathbed, The Bed That Eats, made in 1977 by George Barry, which, unbeknownst to me, this is the only film that George Barry ever made. I came to this movie hearing about it years ago, and I don't even remember when this first came out, but Patton Oswalt has this really infamous comedic bit that was on his record, Werewolves and Lollipops. I think it was called that, where he just talks about this silly-ass movie called Deathbed. And for years upon years, everyone, due to that bit, just had nothing but dogged things to say about this movie. And it kind of colored the perception as to what it was I was going to be walking into when ultimately I finally decided to sit down and watch this thing for this podcast. While, of course, the idea of making a movie about a bed that eats people is absolutely fucking hilarious, nothing could have prepared me for the pure surrealist dark horror that was the actual movie Deathbed. So, folks, unlike a lot of other episodes where I'm actively kind of like already aware that this movie is probably more than likely going to be bad, we're going to start this episode flat out saying I'm recommending this movie to you because honestly, Deathbed is not a bad movie. So we're going to get to the verdict right off the bat. Deathbed, while certainly an oddity, this film actually works as a dark surrealist horror film. It's goofy and low budget in places, but it's serious enough to actually enjoy as a haunting piece of horror cinema. So what is the plot of Deathbed? Well, a painter forever imprisoned by his own painting of a bed that eats people, which was born of demons' tears, tells the bed's history and ongoing exploits. At no point was I prepared or even had any idea as to what this movie was or where it was going. It feels like, honestly, and this is so cliche to say this, because the vast majority of people, I think it's shorthand to call something Lynchian. And that's kind of like the common vernacular for a surrealist, dark kind of horror movie. Even though I would never say that David Lynch necessarily resides in the realm of horror. I think a lot of themes that he had were horrific. And a lot of places he went to were super dark, but tonality-wise, he liked to get under the skin and get beneath ideas that he had to get to deeper truths. Now, whether or not we're actually getting to deeper truths in any capacity whatsoever in Deathbed, I think that might be a stretch. But there was a tone, and maybe it was because in 1977, this kind of cinema was either relegated to low budget and European fare, but Deathbed has a tone that would set well in like the short films of David Lynch, or even like, I don't want to say Eraserhead because Eraserhead is kind of its own thing. There's really nothing out there that's like it. It's ultimately like one of my top 10 movies of all time. I've seen it so many times. It really, I have a history with it, which maybe at some point I'll get to if I haven't already. But Deathbed really surprised me. There was an episode a while back on the Patreon, I think, where we did one of Tobe Hooper's movies that he either did before or right after Texas Chainsaw Massacre called Eggshells, that was also really surrealist and out there. Deathbed, while it has a very singular focus, kind of rides that line. And I have to say, I absolutely fucking loved this movie. Let's get to the good, the bads, and the what the fucks.
What is good?
The best good I can say about this movie, that it definitely has a mood and vibe. It goes down to, it's shot on film, and it's shot in edited in such a way that you glean a lot of the subtext just through the visuals. The story isn't its strong point. The tone and vibe absolutely is, because it's far more atmospheric in that low budget 70s kind of way. It has a lot of style and charm. And the images of like this movie, like even though you hear at points a bed that is chewing on something, when it eats people, there are shots and scenes where it basically, what it does is it like liquefies people in like orange goo, like they sink into the bed, and they're in like this other realm of like yellow liquid where they basically dissolve. And these sequences are the kind of sequences you would see occasionally where you just see colors in liquid kind of get shot into it and bloom out, and it's really fucking cool. I absolutely loved it, and it's so dreamy. That's why I think a lot of like I don't want to say denigration, but the people that like to make fun of Deathbed, they overplay the silliness of the conceit of this movie, where I think the movie is just far too dark and serious to really be considered a comedic piece. Now, maybe some people would look at this thing and go, God, this is a complete waste of time. Like there is no plot to this thing. And why the fuck would anybody be drawn to lay in this bed? And when I get to some of the other pieces of this, you'll see why. Because the film doesn't really tell a straightforward narrative plot. It jumps around in time. It is mostly told in VO, because like I said in the plot, you have this guy that's stuck inside of a painting, which is visualized by, there's a painting and in the room in which the deathbed is in. And behind it is this little kind of like square prison where this guy is just sitting in there. Supposedly he had been killed by the deathbed. And when the deathbed kills people, it leaves pieces of them elsewhere, because this bed, we find out like almost 3/4 of the way through the movie that the bed was born because a demon was on Earth and like bled tears onto it. In this bed, all of a sudden was imbued with demonic powers and an unquenchable like hunger for human blood. It makes no fucking sense whatsoever. But the bed, because of these demonic powers, it consumes, but then puts back into either like a nightmare realm or an actual reality, pieces, metaphorical or physical, of that person that it consumed. And it's a pretty cool fucking idea. I also really like how this movie is structured. It's almost like it's an anthology film, and it's broken up to, some films when you sit down and watch them, they have chapters and they're like shown on screen where a graphic will come on and say chapter 2, blah, 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 blah. This film, it is structured by meals. So the beginning of the movie, the first section is breakfast, then lunch, then dinner, and then like just desserts. And I thought that was really a funny way to kind of break this up, because while toward like, I think the second and third part of this film, there's a very threadbare plot going on with a few characters. But around this, you're still kind of in this timeless realm with the narrator who's jumping back and forth in time and telling all the stories of all the people that have been eaten by this bed. So having this structure of where, like, okay, we're getting a little story in the beginning, which is the breakfast, and then the lunch, which kind of starts the story of the actual film, but it really doesn't. I thought that was really cute and it was kind of fun. Another good of this movie is because this was made in 1977, all practical special effects, and most of the special effects, because this bed doesn't have limbs or hands or things in which it can actually move things to draw people in or lock people in. There's a lot of sleight of hand kind of special effects where doors are closed or drapes are drawn or things are slightly moved by just force of paranormal will. That for what this is, I thought was pretty great. And I love seeing stuff like that. And the last good I really have of this movie is that toward the end, I mean, because I suppose you could say if you like to see naked women, there's a lot of naked women in this movie, which was after watching House on Bear Mountain, I wasn't actually like prepared for the amount of nudity that's in this movie, but there's a lot of nudity in this movie. But one of the various people that wind up in what essentially is, the movie starts off in a house, not a castle, but like an old estate where this bed is residing. And then after the first section, somehow, and it's not really explained, and this is actually part of my bads, is that in between the first section, which is breakfast, and then the next section, which is lunch, the house somehow gets destroyed by sheer will of the bed. And then it's some like tiny little brick room in the middle of nowhere. And it's not really explained, but you kind of have to like just accept the fact that all of a sudden we're at a different location. And from what I believe, this film took a really long time to make. So that's probably why they didn't have access to that location anymore. But toward the end, there's this guy that shows up in the room looking for his sister. And he attempts to kill the deathbed with a knife, and his hands get stuck in the bed, and the bed starts to dissolve his hands. He pulls them out, and they're just pure fucking skeleton hands. And the motherfucker doesn't die. He ends up walking around with like, he has a coat on. He's just a normal ass person, but he just has skeleton hands. And I fucking loved it so much. It is, if you look at the artwork for the podcast, you'll see the image of what I'm talking about. It is so silly, and I fucking loved it. Let's get to the bads.
What is bad?
At points, this movie looks like, especially when it's nighttime, like a shitty Andy Milligan film. The day for night in this is, the exposure's really bad. So there's a section toward the beginning, and it's sprinkled throughout, where it's just, they try to do day for night and underexposed, and it just did not turn out well. And those of you that are fans of Andy Milligan know exactly what I'm talking about. It just doesn't look good at all. Another bad of this is, like I said before, because this is told from the perspective of the painter, almost the entire film is told in voiceover. So there are some people that actually talk on screen, but the majority of it, I don't even think has dual sync sound. I think they just did a lot of Foley and put a score over top of it. So it's that kind of movie, which can be annoying to some. And as I said before, the transition between the house in the first section and then this little brick shack where it's like a huge room where this bed is just in. It's not told very well. They didn't capture the footage that was necessary in order for it to even make sense. So that kind of sucks. And then my last bad is about halfway through this movie, with no real story for your hat to hang on, this kind of just exists to be weird and trippy. which really could turn a lot of people off, I think. But if you're into films that are vibe pieces, Deathbed delivers. But if you're kind of like you need everything explained to you, and I'm not saying that as a derogatory thing. I'm saying that as if you're a person that needs explanation and logic in your horror films, Deathbed is not the movie for you. It's absolutely not the movie for you. If you want to see a lot of weird shit and people inexplicably brought to a fucking deserted, dirty ass room with a bed that probably smells like moldy ass old fucking like linens to quote unquote fuck, because that's what people do, right? They go out into some abandoned shack and lay down on some old bed to fuck. If it doesn't matter, like plot doesn't matter to you, then this movie is great. But if you really need to know all of the minutia of everything that's going on in a film, especially horror films, this is not going to be for you. Let's get to the what the fucks.
What the fuck is that?
For the first minute of this film, and I actually like this, but it goes into a what the fuck. This movie is a black screen with nothing but chewing sounds going on. An entire minute of it, where you start to think, did I actually turn the movie on? What the fuck's going on? So that's super weird. But what's even weirder is, like I said to you before, the bed doesn't actually chew anybody. It foams up and draws people into it, and they kind of fall into the bed and then get dissolved in like acid. So what's being chewed? I have no fucking clue what's being chewed at all. So what the fuck is that? The first scene that we have of this film concerns like a couple who look like they've packed and are looking for a rendezvous / picnic together. And they wind up at the estate and go to this room where it literally looks like a dungeon with this fucking bed in it, which is this huge, like, king-sized bed. And they lay down on it, and the guy's just horned the fuck up. This guy wants to get it in a major fucking way. But and this fucking, maybe it's not weird to you, but this guy, hey, what is a food that you think you would have if you were with your lady friend and you're trying to, get it in? What is the most erotic food you could bring to eat right before you fuck? I'll give you a second. I don't think it would be fried chicken in a huge fucking, like one of those KFC bins. Like, who the fuck brings fried chicken to fuck? God damn it. It was so fucking funny. One of the many like flashbacks to the various things that Deathbed has killed, the people that it's killed or eaten. There's an old lady that gets eaten by the bed that right before it gets eaten is sitting on the bed reading a newspaper called Oral Lesbians. Okay? In the 70s, were there a lot of like zines and newspapers with porno that specific? That was crazy. Once you get to like what's considered the main plot, because intermixed in that is just a lot of like tiny little scenes where people are getting eaten, telling this history of all the things that happened prior to these people showing up at the deathbed. There's these three ladies who drive up, go in the middle of nowhere because she feels drawn to this place. And one of their friends winds up in the room with the deathbed while the other two are out searching for things, for reasons. And the two friends, when they come back, they can't find the friend that went into the deathbed room because she's been eaten by fucking deathbed and turned into a fucking flower out in the yard. The one lady exclaims, She must have gotten herself into a bear trap or quicksand. 1, it is a bare field. There's no fucking trees to be found, nor is there any quicksand. Great deduction skills. Great deduction skills. And my last what the fuck is like, what exactly is being chewed at all by Deathbed? Nobody knows. Just a lot of yellow goo. And that's really Deathbed. It doesn't like, I don't want to give away too much about it. And I also don't feel like you can give away too much about it because it's just a film that you experience more than something that you're going to walk away from with a clear understanding as to what you had just watched. It's something that if you are into just vibes of horror movies, and there's some movies out there that I really love that are like that, this one's going to be for you. And I recommend it. But having said that, I can't lie to you and say that, like, man, a lot of this movie stuck in my brain after it was done. But I also can't lie to you and say that I didn't have a good time watching it because I thought it was great. So that's all I got for Deathbed this episode of the podcast. I totally recommend you guys go out and check it. It's one of those movies where too many people have kind of pushed this down our throats as trash film fans as being a bad movie. And I want to rebuke that completely. It's shot well, has a great score. It's dreamy and dark and fucking weird. And holy shit, do we as horror film fans need weird? There's too many movies out there that are just spoon-fed to us. And I'd rather have a film where I have no fucking clue what's going to happen next and is weird than another fucking slasher movie. Flat out. So that's what I got. Next episode of the podcast, we're going to be going to a classic. And what I mean by classic is like in the pantheon of bad films, there's certain movies that have been told throughout the age of cinema as being like the ultimate bad movies. In the next episode, The Beast of Yucca Flats is going to be conquered by me finally. I think I've seen it in the past, but I don't remember it at all. And boy, do I love me some Tor Johnson. So bring it on, folks. That's what we're going to be watching next episode. So until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Worst Movies Ever podcast is executive produced by Vaughn Kuhlmeyer and Shannon Smith. For more Worst Movies Ever, and to make the Doctor watch your worst movies ever, subscribe to the Worst Movies Ever Patreon at patreon.com/Worst Movies Ever. There you will get a monthly exclusive WME podcast plucked from the user-generated film list, randomized episode to episode. Until next time, celebrate trash at all costs. Toodles.